Jeryl.
And we are live. Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rising Up with Jeryl. I am your host, Jeryl. It is my distinct pleasure to invite you to a very, very special edition of Rising Up. Tonight, we've got a show that is a multi generational conversation, if you will, about the coronavirus.
And we
That
are live. Hello.
okay, somebody has their phone. Okay, cool. Anyway, we've got this multi generational conversation going on tonight. You know, we started with the pandemic and then we moved right into some racial unrest in this country. And tonight's discussion is just the beginning of an even deeper conversation that we'd like to have. So please stay with us throughout the show because after the show tonight, we're going to end the broadcast and invite anyone who would like to join us into this Zoom room. It will be a very private dialogue just between us and you about what's going on in the world. How do you feel about it? And what can we do to be a part of the solution and not the problem? So I do hope you'll stay with us. If you would like to join us in the Zoom room after this broadcast, just leave a message for us in the comments saying that you'd like to be there. And we'll make sure you get that link. We will send it to your messenger, we'll private message you with that Zoom room link so that you can be with us. I hope you'll all want to stick around, and I hope you want to stick around and be with us afterwards. And now it is really my great pleasure to introduce my three very special guests. Right below me is the young, the handsome, the very successful and talented photographer and author and activist, Caleb Allison. I'm getting tongue tied tonight, who also recently participated in a peaceful protest in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Caleb. I'm so happy to have you here with me tonight. And then we have up to the other side of me is Diana Allison. Diana is an author, intuitive healer, energy worker, specializing in inner child and overcoming grief. She's a reverend in the International Metaphysical Ministry with a degree in metaphysical counseling. Hello and welcome, Diana. And last but certainly not least, my very lovely ShaRon, who is a family communications and relationship coach, author, speaker, and owner of the Whole Family Coaching. She's got over 30 years of experience in communication, education, childcare, and public service. She is a passionate woman on a serious mission to make the world a better place. She is founder of the global movement, No Judgment, Just Love, whose goal is to inspire us to live together with unconditional allowance, one conversation at a time. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all with me here tonight.
Thank you, Jeryl. Hello, everyone.
Yay.
Hi.
Hey,
I can get readjusted.
you're okay. I'll tell you what, we got some conversation to be having tonight. As we all know, a few months ago, not just here in the United States, but all over the world, there was this global pandemic that we're still dealing with, just in a different way today. And that went right on into this social, racial injustice and social unrest that is not only sweeping our country, but we're finding that is becoming a global issue as well. So, where I'd like to start tonight is with each of you. What's been your individual experiences? Caleb, you just went to a peaceful protest So how about we start with you and, let's back up to the virus and kind of how did it kind of move in for you and what are you seeing and what are people your age, what's going on?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question because you got people my age who are coming into adulthood and they don't exactly know where they fit in. You've got a society that doesn't treat them the way that they feel like they should be treated. So you have the pandemic, which put them in isolation for a couple of months, and these people aren't used to isolation. These people are social. They're social creatures that are used to conversation and having that extroverted dialogue, which is weird because our generation's known to be introverted. They're known to be both. They're introverted extroverts, as I like to call them. So you keep them bottled up for a couple months, and then all of a sudden you immediately transition them into this racial injustice, and they have got all of this anger and this frustration bottled up from being isolated for so long, and they have got to get it out. They have been frustrated, they've been stuck, and then this happens, and then they know that they have an outlet, and it's a recipe for, I want to say, change, but not everyone sees it like that. Not everyone sees it as a positive thing, and that's okay. We're vastly different generations, and we're not meant to see things the same way. But they've wanted change for so long, and then you bottle them up for so long, and then you send them out, and you give them something to fight for, and they're going to fight for it. So the pandemic started, they were withheld from, any kind of contact, and then this happens, and they're thrown out there, and they're spitting stuff off. They're ready to make the change that they wanted to make before this all happened. But now they have the power to do it. They've had time to recharge because society is constantly draining them of everything they've got. But now they've gotten their power back, and they don't have anything better to do. So they're ready, and they've been out there even today. It's been weeks, and they're still out there protesting. They're still tirelessly working towards the change that they want to see in the world, which is inspiring. I don't know how they do it. We were only out there for one day, and we were exhausted. Atlanta was an incredible experience. All those people in solidarity to one common purpose. It was what you want to see the United States of America to be, one single purpose, all chanting the same thing. But it was exhausting. It's a socially exhausting thing to fight for change, especially when you don't think that you can make that change happen. But if you get enough people together, anything is possible. And I think that's what we're going for.
Thank you, Caleb. There's a lot of things I want to come back and talk to you about, pick apart in that statement later on. ShaRon, what has your experience been with this transition?
I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and our topography is different than a city. It's different than New York. It's different than rural. So we have a lot of open space where you can be outside and not really interact with other people. So when the pandemic hit and things were shut down, there still were quite a lot of families going outside and playing with their kids, but they were kind of situated differently from each other. I work a lot with the schools. So when the schools shut down and the parents had to take on the task of trying to figure out if they had a job, how they were going to do their job, everybody's home. They now have to be the teacher as well as the parent, figuring out technology, if they even had the technology to have this happen. One computer with more than one child and more than one person home became a struggle. So I got the opportunity to do a webinar with some of the parents from our school district, helping them communicate, because what I find is that when you're sequestered, when you're with people that, like Caleb said, are usually out and about and you only have 5 minutes that you interact with them, and now you're with them all day long, it really highlights how well or not how well you communicate with each other. So especially when parents have a perspective, and Caleb, my age group that I love is middle school. So I was pretty much working with middle school, which is a precursor to what your generation is talking about. They're not treated well. They're treated as if they don't exist, and let me just close my eyes until they grow up, and then I can deal with them then. So there was a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion with the families and the people that I interacted with. But also at the time of the pandemic, because I always rise up to my GPS, the greatest personal shift that I can make, because when I try to make sense of this plane, it's often difficult. We found this article that saw the pandemic as a gift, not as a curse, and a gift that we all created. People were complaining, I hate my job. I don't want to have to drive to my job. I never get to see my kids. And so this virus came as a result of those pleas that were loud. And from that perspective, we all got an opportunity, whether we knew it or took it or not, to go within and really decide, do I want to work the way I've been working? How can I readjust my life? I don't want to go back to whatever people are saying the normal is that wasn't working for me. And so I agree with Caleb that I have a 23-year-old and she and I live together, and she just was like a cat in a cage. I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out. And so when Mr. Floyd's video came out, and I can resonate with Caleb's comment that people were so pent up, and now rather than just going out and partying or seeing a friend, there was a common goal. There was something that was energized. So that's what I think is extending the opportunity to continue to peacefully protest, to actually have conversation. I peruse the internet a lot, and because of No Judgment, Just Love, I'm very willing to listen to perspectives that I don't understand, I'm not aware of. And people are talking, and they're talking from their hearts. They're talking from their frustration together. They're speaking out in public forums. They're having quiet conversations with each other. And I think the flow of the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement is in divine timing for us to actually change. Now, if somebody wants to hurry up, I don't know that this change is going to come that fast to what you would like it to be, but there is already change happening. So.
Thank you. And now, Miss Diana, where are you falling out in all of this? What's been your experience there in Tennessee?
Tennessee. Well, the experience in Tennessee, as Caleb can attest, is that there is no demonstrating going on here. It's pretty much, Tennessee is a very southern, rebel flags everywhere. There's very little change as far as that's concerned. The changes for me are internal, because I'm watching my kids. And at first, when I saw these kids saying, well, we're going to Atlanta, we're going to go out here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mama Bear wants to protect these kids. And then I turned over to, let me look and see what this is really all about. I'm a mom, okay, and I'm a white mom, and I don't fear for my children to walk down the street, to go to a store, to go. And I started really paying attention, because, and this is where the conversation sometimes needs to be, is that just because I'm not experiencing these issues, just because my children aren't going through these things, doesn't mean that I don't get to be part of the solution. That means that I have a responsibility to be a part of the solution, and it requires me to take a closer look what really is going on here. So I'm really grateful for what the virus has played a part in this, and slowing us all down and creating that time for us to really study this and take a look, and to see this movement now, that it has fueled this fire, and to watch it now for all of us take the time to really take a look and see, wait a minute, I am part of the problem. I'm part of this because I didn't do anything. For all these years, I've been standing back, being the person that I've been being, and I'm not standing up for people that are weaker, that need, or that are being mistreated. So I think that's the most important part of this for me, is that it's given me the time to really, it's been very eye-opening. That we all have to take a part in this. We're all part of this conversation. And it's so important for us to take the time to really listen, to hear these voices that haven't had a chance to truly be heard. So that's my stand on it. I hope that more people will look at me as a middle-aged, middle-class white woman with 6 kids and say, wait a minute, I fall in the same place that she does. I've been doing this and I've been ignoring the situation for a really long time. And it's time for me to start waking up and paying attention.
And I agree with you so much. Now, I don't have children, so I'm in a different, my feelings are different, but I have nieces and nephews that I raised. And so for me, I'm with you. I can't possibly comprehend what it would be like to be a young Black man in this society, or any age of a Black man in this society, or whether it's Hispanic or Black. But right now, the focus is on Black Lives Matter. I was raised in a very racist home. My mother did preach tolerance, and I really felt like I was above the racism issue. I felt like I was open, I was loving, I was embracing of all races, until I was younger and I was sitting in a car and I saw two young Black men walking down the street on the opposite side of the street from me. Now, I worked, our friends, we socialized. It was all types of people that were socializing together. And when I saw these two young men, I didn't even think, I locked my door. I literally locked my door. And that click of that lock did something to me internally. And it was at that point that I realized that even though I felt consciously as if I wasn't a racist at the time, I realized that I had stereotypically judged these two young men who I didn't know coming down the street. And so I think part of what I'd like to see the conversation include is that each and every one of us, no matter how conscious we are or how compassionate, that there is something within each of us, whether it's towards the Black or whether it's the Hispanic, whether it's in reverse towards the Caucasians, that each and every one of us, for me, what this is all bringing out is, where am I? Where am I judging? Where am I being a racist in any way, shape, or form, or on any level? And also to have that compassion, because I don't have to worry about my nephew being out there, other than sometimes he can be a little smart mouthed. And if a cop comes and pulls him over, he might get his, he might get in a little trouble just because sometimes he just doesn't know when to shut up, but it's not the same as being a young Black man. So with that, you talked about, Caleb, that your friends were pent up and they're seeing that this is happening and now they've got to respond, they've got to act. We're all a bunch of middle-aged women, okay, from a different generation. What is it like in your generation? What are the kids today? Because I know I grew up in a racist home, but not everybody does today, even though some do. Where does everybody fall out on that? I mean, what's the general census that you've learned or see?
I feel like I want to go back to ShaRon's response about it's so easy to just blink and want these kids to be grown-ups. And that's what you do. You send them off to school for 8 hours a day and you rarely ever get to see or talk to them. Suddenly, we're in the house with these kids for, every single day, 7 days a week. And we're all there talking about the same things. And we really get to know one another. You know what I mean? And as far as that goes, I feel like our generation has had to do things that the other generations haven't had to do. Specifically speaking, breaking generational curses, generational stereotypes, things that we subconsciously picked up growing up. And like you mentioned, locking the doors when certain racial stereotypes walk by, it's a subconscious thing. You were taught as a kid that that's just what you do, and you don't even think about it until you do it. And then suddenly it's like, why did I do that? You know, it's not me, but it is. It's a subconscious thing that your parents planted in your brain, and you don't even think about it until it happens. So we have these kids who are now stuck in the house 24 hours a day, and they're having to deal with their parents and the full entirety of their parents, you know, learned subconscious prejudices and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, we have got to end this. We have got to break this here. We have got to be patient, but also we've got to be impatient. We've got to have that perfect balance of, we got to make sure this doesn't go on to our children, but at the same time, we know that it's not going to end with ours. It's not going to just cut off right here. We can't end racism tomorrow. It's got to be a thing that is slowly implemented, but with a conscious effort, a consistent effort over time. And I mean, it can happen. It can happen. We are looking at a different world that we have to live in. And as long as we put forth that effort, as long as everyone is putting forth just a little bit of effort to break stereotypes and to break subconscious boundaries that are implemented by our parents, we will get there one day. And I feel like that's this whole George Floyd thing kind of, shot us forward a little bit really quickly. We were like, okay, we gotta break these subconscious beliefs at some point. And then this happens and we're like, okay, it needs to happen a little bit sooner than we thought. So now we're out here protesting and doing stuff like that. And now that it's, kind of slowing down, there are things that we have to do to make sure that this effort wasn't for nothing. We have to make sure that the progress that we made stays and that we're making more progress as the time goes on. Voting, that's the biggest one, just voting in general, but making sure injustices like this don't just go over the radar again. It's easy to find stuff like this continuously happening, but we need to make sure that people are held responsible for the things that they do. And we need to make sure, if you look at the future, there is no color. There's no color, there's no borders, there's nothing. We are one planet. I can't for the life of me at 22 years old understand how we all live on this earth. We're all one creature, but we still find ways to split each other apart. And at some point, we're going to have to get over that. And we're going to be the human race. We're going to be a combined thing, one single, I don't even know what you would call it. But it's going to be beautiful whenever it happens, as long as we're making that effort towards that.
I agree. And I just want to interject quickly once again. At the end of this broadcast, about 9 o'clock, if you would like to come into this Zoom room, it is private. This will not be broadcast. To continue this dialogue with the four of us, we would love to have your input and see where you're at with all of this. If you'd like to do that, please put in the comments that you would like to join us in the Zoom room, and someone will send you in your private messenger account the Zoom link to come into the Zoom room. We'd love to have you join us. I know there are some out there that are going to be joining us, so please join with us on this. Thank you. ShaRon,
Yes,
by the
ma'am.
way, Caleb, thank you. I love how articulate you, after I saw you on Diana's show, you give me hope for the future when it comes to your generation. I love your articulation. So ShaRon, in response, this is like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Caleb,
I've been taking notes, Caleb, and trying to incorporate them in what I want to say. There was an author back in the 1960s. His name was James Baldwin. And I did not know about him when I was little. And since this time is happening with the racial unjust treatment, and this is not new, so I really encourage everyone to broaden their perspective. God bless Mr. Floyd, but hello, this has been happening for a really, really, really long time. And thank God for video, because now the world can see what we have been living for hundreds of years. And so what he wrote and what he said was very simple when someone asked him, what do Black people want? We just want to be left alone so we can live. I mean, how simple and how profound. And so I think words are used very flippant these days. We don't understand how other people receive the words that we say. And so in our effort to try and have conversation, for me, I think it's important to help people see for themselves. White privilege is a trigger. Black Lives Matter is a trigger. Both of those things are valuable to get people to wake up and see that things need to have a conversation around them. But be careful with the words that you choose when you're trying to, as Caleb said, have some kind of come togetherness. Because if you keep using the word white privilege and what you mean, and I'm going to share a story about myself, if you keep using that and someone hears that as, I worked hard, I'm not privileged, I don't have what everybody else has, that's not the definition that we're talking about. We're talking about what James Baldwin said. Many, many Black men, Black women, Hispanic, Asian, they don't get to be just left alone. I'm here in Scottsdale, and when I go into Target and I don't find what I want, there is a thought in my mind, how do I leave the store so no one will think I'm trying to steal something? How many people of non-color have that thought? You just walk in and out. Right. And that is part of the definition of white privilege. There are thoughts that you don't have that we carry with us all the time, right, wrong, or indifferent. And Caleb, I agree with you about the subconscious. We all have prejudices, from men to women, tall to short. As a workshop facilitator, if somebody's not smiling, engaged, I think they're not paying attention. And I'm wrong a lot of the time. And so there is change that can happen from our actions, from the peaceful protests, from people working with the police department to recognize that there are some things, some policemen who maybe shouldn't be policemen, just like there are some judges who maybe shouldn't be judges. There's a whole lot of teachers that shouldn't be teachers. And so it's not the whole. So when we use words that encompass everyone, when you're really wanting to focus on certain challenges within a whole, you lose a lot of people in that conversation, because we're in a microwave, quick, hurry up. We don't take the pause to respond. We react, and we react from what's triggered in us already. Where is that pain point? So if you say to me, Black Lives Matter, I resonate with that, but at the same time, I have a little challenge with that, because being Black is not this. Being white is not this. Being a policeman is not this. There's a spectrum. Black people have the same opportunity to be less than what Black Lives Matter is defined as, and different. And so I struggle sometimes with, I absolutely am in this community, but how the media is defining this community does not necessarily fit with me. And I've been in the car with my Black brothers where we got stopped. I've been going to places where people stop me and say, oh, are you the help? Instead of attending a party. So this is not only something that we can shift and change with deliberate, focused effort on the outside. That is absolutely important. But we have to change minds, change ingrained habits, change, like Caleb said, break the system of what's happened before, because it is unconscious. And until we can recognize and gently use words, or strongly use words that get people to not just wake up, but to self-reflect, just like we're doing here, then I think we move forward a little bit quicker, one person at a time.
I would agree, and I love the fact that I appreciate so much seeing your perspective, ShaRon, and Caleb's perspective, because there are as many different perspectives probably as there are people out there, and that's why we want people to come into this room afterwards so that we can talk about these things. It hurts my heart when I hear you, ShaRon, when you say when you go into a store and if you don't see something and that thought goes through your mind as you're leaving the store, you know, will they, think I'm shoplifting? Or I also have seen where I was in a store that maybe was in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I saw a black person come in, and you would see the security guard kind of follow them through the store. So it was this automatic, okay, you are suspect because of your skin color. And I can't fathom what that's like. Because being of white privilege, if you will, however that word is used, I'm sure it's got something to do with me. I don't have that experience. So I can't imagine what that is like. I also, I can't even fathom what it would be like to have my children be out there if my children were black or biracial. That still is, it's a concern. So may I ask you, if it's okay, how are your children handling all of this, ShaRon?
Me?
Yes.
My children are beautifully blended Black Americans and Italian Americans.
Uh-huh.
So I have interaction with my 23-year-old a lot, and she's just a beautiful young woman. And the people that she's around, because again, I live in Scottsdale, so it's not a very diverse community. I came from New York where, oh my goodness, all kinds of people. So she's not been necessarily exposed to a lot of different cultures. Excuse me. So for her, interestingly enough, in kind of response to Caleb, she just wants to be treated well, and she wants other people to treat other people well. I mean, she gets misunderstood as being sometimes Hispanic, sometimes Black, sometimes white. It's just the gamut, and I think that is beautiful to be blended as that. So she's having more of a challenge because she hasn't lived the same Black experience that I've lived here in Scottsdale. She has a challenge relating to that in a way that causes anger or desire to go march. She, I believe, wants to be part of the solution of, can't we just all get along? And don't be colorblind, because then you don't see me. Be color aware and look past that, acknowledge that we're all unique and different, but we're all human, and we all deserve to be, as James Baldwin said, left alone to live.
That's right.
Diana, you have 6 children, and I know you to be one of the most compassionate, loving people I have ever met before. And I count Caleb as your 7th, actually.
I don't know if he'll let.
Yeah. So I know that in raising your children, how did you do that? How, for other parents out there that, and you have your youngest is 13 right now. So what is that experience for you, in the sense that, what do you tell your children at this point? Because obviously this is not an issue that is only certain people know about. If you're conscious, if you're awake, you know what's going on.
Right. Well, So when the conversations first started, I think sometimes I play the devil's advocate because I want them to see things from different directions. I don't believe that this is all one side against the other side. I believe that we have to find a way to come together here somehow. And so when we generalize different things, like we say, well, all policemen, last weekend, for example, my 13-year-old, we're driving and she's talking a lot about what she's seeing. You know, she's very passionate already about all of this, and she's spent time with Caleb and Caroline and Jess, all the older ones, this past weekend. So she was hearing everything that they were telling her. She we were sitting in the car, and she was like, well, basically, her idea is all policemen are bad now. And I said, now hold on. You can't do that. You cannot generalize a whole. I said, your brother wants to be a policeman. Would you think that he was bad if he decided to be a policeman? I said, if we generalize all policemen as bad, we're basically putting ourselves in the same boat all over again. We cannot keep generalizing. We have to look through a different lens. We have to find some kindness and compassion. There are some policemen that go into it for the wrong reasons, or they have done things that are, and sure, we need to find some more control. We definitely need to do some more screening. But if we just do that, what happens then? Are we out to get them? You know, are we out to start, are policemen going to be the next target? And so the idea here is that we have to find respect and compassion and love through this. And like, I love ShaRon, you know, stop judging. We have to look through a different lens here. Yes, there are some people that do some horrible atrocities. There are, but what are we doing? What can we live without having a police force, truly? Because I know for me, and I know I got in trouble with my daughter when I said this, but I've had times when I've needed them and they've been there for me. They've, you know, really, I realized that I have white skin, and she was like, Mom, you don't have the same experience that Black Americans, you know, that if someone of color, they might have a totally different experience. Maybe those policemen might have treated them different. And I'm respectful of that. Yes, I do understand that there's that's mixed in. But I guess I just want to make that known too, that my children and I, back to your question, that we've had these tough conversations. We have to, because I want all people, like Caleb just said a little while ago, I want the borders to come down. I love the diversity. I love that we're all so different. I want to see the diversity. I want to see how we all can somehow learn to agree to disagree, learn to enjoy each other's differences, and respect one another. Eventually, I hope that's what we're coming to. But I really, really, those are the tough conversations. It is tough with kids these days because mine are very passionate, and they're definitely standing up for everything that's happening. I just want to remind them that all people deserve respect and love. You know, I guess that's a tough conversation. Really, it is. ShaRon, I can see you nodding because it's tough to try to find a balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we strike that balance?
Are we talking to ShaRon?
Ron? Anyone, it's up for grabs. It's up for grabs right now. How do we strike the balance? How do we, and let me just say one more time very quickly before we go into the answer of that question. At the end of this show at 9 o'clock, we are going to be ending our broadcast and inviting anyone who would like to join us to continue this conversation. We really need to have this conversation on every level. We need everyone's input, and we need everyone to start to come together. So please let us know in the comments if you can join us, and someone will send you a link to the Zoom room so you can come in and be heard. It will be private. It will not be broadcast, and it will be a very safe space. There is no judgment as to what you have to say. We really want to hear what you have to say. So how do we strike the balance, ShaRon?
Because I want to let Caleb or Diane answer that. I just want to interject a little bit about words, because words really matter. And Caleb also mentioned energy in a group matters. Group energy just seems to permeate in it, and it causes you to get swept up in it and maybe not necessarily discern your own perspective. You're in a group perspective. And so when I was little, law and order police was not what they were called. They were peace officers. And when you come to work and your title is peace officer, you have a little different perspective. And if everyone collectively in the energy of the police department has that energy of, I'm here to protect and serve, I'm here not to do law and order, which is important. I mean, don't get me wrong, but if that's where you're leading from, it kind of takes away some of the humanity that you might want to display because you're in this energy of, I have to stop, I have to law, and I have to create order. When you create order, you don't really see people as individual people, especially if they are people of color. So I give it to my other wonderful people to answer Jeryl Ann's question.
Caleb, so how do we strike a balance? How do we dismantle the subconscious programming and act more like your generation?
You want an equation to balance. For any issue, I think the first thing for this specific issue, I would say that the most important part of an equation would be accountability. This a country as a nation was built for freedom. It was built along the lines of, if something goes wrong, we need to come together as a community, analyze the problem, and figure out a solution. I mean, the police solution, like ShaRon said, is a community-led thing. It used to be a peace thing. Something goes wrong, they need to be held accountable. Let's all come together and figure out what needs to happen. And I feel like recently that hasn't been the case, but that's just what we need to get back to peace. And we're in a political landscape where peace isn't exactly the first weapon to use. But when you are taking the equation of balance, of peace, of the yin and yang of an entire globe, 8 billion people almost, you have really got to sit there and analyze the power of community. There's no way you're going to get 8 billion people to agree on something, but the more voices you have, the more cohesive the response is. So there's not a specific answer to how can you create balance, but I feel like it's an equation, and the most important part of an equation is accountability for something of this magnitude.
I like that a lot. And I feel like each and every one of us, if we are accountable to ourselves, it helps others become accountable for themselves as well. It has to start here.
Exactly.
It has to start right here with me. Where am I not practicing no judgment, just love? Where am I not in integrity with seeing my fellow man or woman as divine spirit only? And where am I seeing the skin color? Where am I seeing the age? Where am I seeing the gender? Whatever it is, where am I doing that? And
if you were to take all cultural appropriation, I think someone said, if you were to take all subconscious beliefs and act purely out of intuition and what your soul believes, and you act on that, and then you see someone do something that is, less than stellar, I would say, and you see them react to their own actions, and you know that it's wrong, that's how you know that they're not being held accountable. Because you made your reaction out of a soul thing. It wasn't out of racial bias that was raised by you or your predecessors. You acted out of intuition, but you wouldn't, if you had done what they had done, you wouldn't have done that. That's how you know what they did is wrong. You put yourself in the position of, I hate to bring up Mr. Floyd, but it seems like the easiest example to use. But if you put your position of that police officer, I can't think of anyone that I know who would have listened to their intuition and stayed there for as long as he did. There's just no one that I would have known that would have done that. So what you're saying is true. If we are accountable for ourselves, we can look at other people and see if they're being accountable for themselves. It's literally that easy to create balance.
I agree. And I know we don't speak to this really frequently. In certain circles, we do. In certain circles that I move in, because my basis of reality stems from we are all a divine spark of God. We are all a divine spark of divinity. And that each and every one of us inside this skin suit, whichever gender, color, whatever it is equal. Literally as powerful. One is as powerful as the other. And each of those divine sparks of divinity come here to choose a certain path. And certainly now we are all on this path of correcting, healing, I think, what's happening in our world, what's happening to humanity. So, you know, Diane, I know that this is the basis of your work. What do you think about that? I mean, that's where I'm thinking. So what?
Well, first off, and I know this doesn't always go over well with my kids because I can get kind of out there, but I believe that without that police officer doing what he did, we wouldn't have this movement. So we have to remember there's always got to be that antagonist. It's a horrible thing that happened, but without him doing what he did, look what's happened. So remember that everyone comes here with some kind of a purpose. And sometimes that purpose seems like it's a really ugly thing to do. But like you said, we're all divine souls. And so when they come in and they do that, that divine soul had a purpose for what he did. That's way above the conversation that we want. But I think that it leads me, the one thing that really comes to me as you're talking is Neil Donald Walsh is looking at every person. You said something about ripples. The way that we make a change is that each one of us has the power to create ripples, and we look around us and we see those people that are around us and we see ourselves in them. We have to slow down. Practice this every day. I started doing it and it really changed the way I looked at it. Everyone that I look at, on some days I'll go, there I am. That's what Neil Donald Walsh started. That movement was, there I am. When he sees that black man, or he sees the child, or he sees a homeless person, or he see whatever you're seeing, the rich man, the man in the White House, whatever, there I am. That's me. That's me. And when I start looking at everybody as being a part of me, and we're all one human race, truly, we start to look at each other in a different light, and we can start to see them through that other lens, that lens of compassion, that lens of love. They're truly living out their existence from what they've learned from the time that they were born. They're playing the role that they're playing. And when this is all over, we're all going to get off the stage and we're all going to pat each other on the back and go have a beer. So let's stop taking this so seriously. It is serious. It's a serious thing, but can we look at each other and start changing the way that start creating ripples? Those people that are directly in your path. What can you do? You do it by one person at a time. Reach out and take the hand of that person. Yesterday, I was up here in the mountains. I saw a black man that great. They were awesome people. He had a Black Lives Matter shirt on, and he's looking at these bears, and he's like holding up the traffic on the motor trail. And he looks at me. He's like, "Did you see the bear?" And I'm like, "I see bears all the time." And he like overreact. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I want to get." And I said, "No, it's fine. It's fine. Like, be kind. Just be nice humans. That's what we need to do." That's my take on it. Just reach out and touch and be kind to those people around you, and we'll create something.
Yes.
Together.
Me and Diane used to say when we were in Boston, we used to say, it's not your duty. It's not your duty on the universe. It's not your duty on Earth to find your place in the universe. It is your duty on life and on Earth to find the universe's location inside you.
Yeah.
Is that how we worded it? It's not your duty to find your purpose in the universe. It's your duty to find the universe's purpose inside you. And I feel like we're all here. We just so happen to be alive at this exact time to fix things however we can. The smallest action can create the biggest snowball you've ever seen.
I agree. That's a beautiful thing, not to look outside of yourself for the universe, but to look inside. I want to share one or two things very quickly. In my experience, we have gotten so far away from natural and nature. Nature flows. Spring comes and it doesn't say, whoa, summer, wait, I ain't done yet. I'm still trying to be spring. You got to hold off. I'm enjoying. And summer comes and spring relinquishes their self to summer. And birds don't say, hey, flower, where's the nectar? I'm standing here. If it's not there, they keep moving. And yet we as humans have somehow felt that things should not change. And I'm comfortable even in my uncomfortable. And I think that if we can say more instead of, I know this, well, I'm not sure, or I don't know, or let me learn, because we don't know what everyone's culture it invites you to do. We don't know what everyone's story is that causes them to have an extreme wall up that you're just not going to penetrate right now. I'm not ready to be one, because one means I got to go be with people that have abused and misused me for my whole life. So why would I want to do that? So I just feel that words are important. Our ability to know that we don't know everything and be willing to listen and learn is valuable and part of that equation of accountability.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, kids, it looks like it's time to wrap this part of the conversation up to prepare for the next phase of this conversation privately in the Zoom room. Once again, if you would like to join us in the Zoom room, we're going to end the broadcast, and then we are going to have a private discussion on and find out what you're feeling, how you're dealing with this, what you're going through, what are the concerns on your heart right now, and what can we do collectively to move things forward in a way that is positive for everyone, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your gender, your age, whatever it is. How can we move forward from here and heal and be a part of the solution? So I want to thank each of you. Would you, one final, Caleb, I'm going to start with you. One final thing you'd like to say to everybody?
Oh man, I don't really have anything. I just find a way to do something nice each day. Just one thing, like I said, one little snowball can destroy a whole town. But we want to do the opposite of that. So just do something nice every day. We're all in a space of happiness. Just be happy. Do what you want to do.
Cool. ShaRon?
Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. Our country knows better. We've been shown that over and over and over again. It's time for us to do better. And I believe no judgment, just love is one avenue to do that. Because with judgment, we judge all the time. It's just normal. But it's the pause after the judgment that allows you to see me as a person, to see our fellow others as a person, and to really figure out how to relate to each other better.
Thank you. Thank you. Diana?
I'm doing the Caleb too. I'm like, what do I got to say? I agree with you guys on the same thing. It's just like my eyes are more open. That's what this has done for me. My eyes are more open. Don't hide someplace and pretend that this isn't happening anymore. It doesn't matter who you are. We are all a part of this. We're all a part of the human race, and it's time to start knocking down walls, and it's time to start reaching out. And you have to open your eyes, and you have to see, and you have to reach out when you see somebody that needs a little help. Let's just, man, if we could just, each one of us, just do a little bit, the change is going to be phenomenal. We won't come out of this at all like we started it. Just like with the virus, it's a powerful movement. We just got to do something. Open your eyes.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. And we will continue this conversation in just about 10 minutes or so. But before we go, I would like to invite you to come back next week, where I will have another panel discussion with the lovely ShaRon Rhea, and Sally De La Rosa, and Deirdre Fitzsimmons. So these three women are going to join me with another very fascinating conversation about how they're all dealing with this and a whole new perspective, because that's what it's about. It's about having conversations. It's about getting it all up. It's about getting it all out there. So I hope you'll join us. And on Monday, please join us also for Silent Mystics. My co-host Diana and I will be coming back at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. So we hope you'll join us with our guest, Wendy Roberts from the UK. We're pretty excited about that. There's so much programming here on Enlightened World Network and EWN Enlightened Living. Tomorrow they have silent meditations, come to the table. I mean, there's so much. Go to the channel, check out the daily programming, and please join us. Help us raise the vibration of the planet one soul at a time. That's our goal. So we hope to see you in the room afterwards. Until then, have a blessed weekend, the rest of your weekend, and have a great evening. We love you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Bye-bye.